Time for another board game review, and this time we have the game Through the Desert. This was sent to me by Z-Man Games and is designed by Reiner Knizia. In Through the Desert, players spread their caravans throughout the Sahara Desert, discovering waterholes and oases to ensure the survival of their trading empire. This remastered version of Through the Desert contains a beautifully illustrated double-sided board featuring the classic experience. Tuareg. This is the name given to the nomadic people who journey across the sweeping sand dunes of northern Africa. For centuries, Tuareg merchants established and maintained trade through the brutal conditions of the Sahara Desert. In Through the Desert, players spread their caravans throughout the Sahara Desert, discovering waterholes and oases to ensure the survival of their trading empire. Let me show you how to play. So in Through the Desert, each player controls a number of caravans consisting of pastel-colored camels. Look at these little guys. Don't these look like candy? I absolutely want to eat these. Players take turns placing more of these camels on the board, expanding their caravans in order to score points. The game ends immediately after the last camel of any one color is played from the supply, after which you compare your point totals and determine the winner. So, this board here, these waterhole tokens are randomly spread out around the board, along with these oases which are marked by palm trees. Then, each player takes turns placing their leaders on the board. Leaders are these camels with riders on them. Starting with the first player, you place them on an empty space on the board. This continues until all the leaders have been played. Each player has 5 leaders, each riding a different colored camel. Now, there are exceptions or restrictions for placing leaders. You can't place a leader in a space containing a waterhole token, so you can put one here. You can't place one on an oasis or on top of another leader. A leader also cannot be placed in a space next to an oasis or next to another leader, and the first leader that each player places cannot have the same colored camel as one already on the board. So right now, this was like the first turn. Each player has placed a different colored camel on. Now it's just a matter of placing camels turn by turn. I'm gonna do that real quick. Bam! Okay, so here all the leaders have been placed on the board. Now, like I said, you and the other players each control a number of caravans using each of the colors of pastel camels. At the start of the game, all your caravans only consist of one camel each, just a leader. But as the game progresses, you'll be extending your caravans by placing camels of matching colors, and you're going to start discovering watering holes, linking oases, and enclosing areas in order to score points. So, it's played over a series of turns. On your turn, you must take a total of 2 camels from among the 5 colors of camels in the supply and place them on the board. You can either take 2 camels of the same color or 2 different colored camels. For the first 2 players, they each only do 1 camel for their first turn, but otherwise you always place 2 camels per turn. Now, camels can be placed on any space that is next to your caravan of the same color, but you have to follow certain rules and restrictions. First off, you can never place camels on these mountain ranges here. These are just like blocked off spaces. Same thing with any space that already has a camel on it, or an oasis. You can't place camels on those either. Your caravan does not have to form a single line. It can fork into different directions. You can place a camel in a space next to a camel of a different color, regardless of who it belongs to. So, for example, I could put a pink camel here, and it would be no problem. Let's say red player puts one there, and then they do, I don't know, this, and they take this. I'll explain what this means in a second. However, you cannot place a camel in a space next to another camel of the same color. Let's say green player is putting down a yellow camel. Now, if you'll notice, red player has a yellow camel here. That means green player cannot put a camel here, because it would connect 2 different caravans belonging to 2 different players. So that is forbidden. And that's also a way in this game to kind of block people, because you know they can't place camels next to your same colored caravans. There are several ways to score points during the game. These points are tracked by point tokens you earn and which are kept in front of you. At the end of the game, you add up your points to determine the winner. First off, we have these waterhole tokens all over the board. Let's say orange play here on their turn. They grab a purple camel, and they decide to put one here on this waterhole. That's a 2-point token. They take it, put it face down in front of them, and it'll be counted at the end of the game. Another way you can score points is by connecting your caravan to an oasis. Let's say blue player up here with his yellow caravan decides to put a camel here. Now that he's connected to the oasis, he takes a 5-point token for doing so. Each caravan can be linked to each oasis only once, but a single caravan can link to multiple oases. If one of your caravans is linked to an oasis, you can still place camels around it. It just won't score you more points. And maybe this is a way you want to block other players from doing so. Because a single oasis can be linked to by any number of caravans belonging to any combination of players. It's only limited by the number of spaces around the oasis. Another way you can score points is by creating an enclosed area. So let's say the orange player here, throughout the game, starts placing their camels. And after a certain point, they actually make an enclosed area. Once an area becomes enclosed by an uninterrupted chain of a single color, then any waterhole tokens in this area, that player gets to take. Also, every empty space in that zone is worth a point to that player at the end of the game. So this would be a nice 5 points. Now, an enclosed area cannot contain anyone else's camels. So if there were a camel here, this wouldn't count. But an empty enclosed area, that counts. Once an area becomes enclosed like this, no one can ever put camels within this area for the rest of the game. So that's pretty much it. You pick up these waterhole tokens, connect to oases, create chains and enclose areas, and at the end of the game, you will score each color and see who has the most camels in their caravan of that color. So let's say you count the pink camels at the end. That player would then receive a 10-point bonus if they have the most camels of that color at the end of the game. Once the last camel of any color is taken, that's the end of the game. And then you give out all those longest caravan bonuses for each color. And you count up how many point tokens everyone has, add them all up, and whoever has the most points is the winner. Now, there is another side of this board that has a river, and there are variant rules like rivers and serpentine, leader placement, aquifers. I'm not going to go into all of that, but just know that there are ways you can sort of customize your game if you're wanting to change up the base game. But that's how the base game works. So what I like about this game is that it is one of those games that's incredibly easy to learn. And what you do on your turn is very simple. All you do is you pick 2 same colored camels, or 2 different colored camels, and expand your caravans. However, there are a lot of different ways you can get points, and you're constantly trying to juggle them all. It kind of feels almost like Ticket to Ride combined with Go. It's satisfying to watch, as it starts as almost an overwhelming array of camels everywhere on the board, but slowly and surely those caravans start to form around the board, and points start getting taken, and the areas start getting enclosed. There's a lot to watch over, and I appreciate that there's not really a wrong way to go for points. You can go for the water holes, or you can try to connect for the oases, or make enclosures. There's room for adaptability, especially because this game is all about you constantly running into the other players all the time. You're always going to get in each other's way. Even though there are a lot of different ways to get points, since you can only connect from your existing caravans, it never feels too overwhelming. You only have 5 different caravans to choose from. So even though it can get a little busy on the board with all the pastel camels everywhere, and sometimes it's hard to tell the difference in color. That's one complaint, is as much as I like how the camels look, some of them are a little similar in color. But you get the hang of it eventually. These camels are nice, but the leaders that you put on these, some of them just do not stay on. They're pretty flimsy. It's fine because once you place them, you don't really move them, but it's still a little annoying. I wish these clipped on a lot better. But that's a pretty minor complaint. It's simple, it's full of interesting decisions, like whether you should okay, give up on this caravan because, oh, their caravan's gonna be way longer. Maybe I'll abandon this one and try to expand this one instead, or maybe I'll try blocking my opponent's pink caravan with my pink caravan in an area. It's a great gateway game to introduce people to these sort of strategy, competitive blocking sort of board games, like area surrounding games. I think it's very well designed. Also, love these cute candy camels, so I recommend it. It's a fun time.